Hello, welcome back to 78 Reflections. My name is Patty Elaine, and I'm so glad you're here. Today we are continuing our Decan stroll, exploring Aquarius through its 3 decans, using tarot and oracle together to understand the emotional and spiritual weather of the season. Before we begin, a very quick and important disclaimer. I am not an astrologer. In fact, my relationship with astrology is very much through the lens of tarot and a beginner's mind. I'm just in the beginning stages of learning about astrology. So as always, take what resonates and leave the rest. So before we start with the decans, I just want to talk a little bit about astrology. So this card here is from the Arcana of Astrology, and this card is from the Star Codes Astro Tarot. Aquarius carries the keyword of collaborate. Aquarius is the water bearer, the one who brings the water not for themselves, but for the community. In traditional astrology, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, with its emphasis on structure and responsibility, but in modern astrology, it is ruled by Uranus, bringing themes of freedom, rebellion, and change. Aquarius is a fixed sign in the middle of winter, a time associated with stability and endurance. It rules the 11th house of community, which makes a lot of sense given its role as the bearer of water, a shared resource. As an air sign, Aquarius represents intellectual and conceptual energy, and its glyph reflects that duality. Waves that suggest both air and water, thought and nourishment. Now today for our Decan stroll, we are going to do a spread that is inspired by this here Temperance card. So in essence, what we're going to do is on this side, we have the astrological sign, which is Aquarius. And that is represented by the major arcana card, the star. And then this other cup on this other side, we will have the planetary influence for that decan and the major arcana card that represents it. In the middle is the alchemy, and that is the minor arcana card representing the decan. And that minor arcana card, the decan card, is going to show us what emerges when these two influences interact. What is the alchemy? And then finally, I'm going to pull the card for that time frame from the Cantagy Oracle. This is the back, the Cantagy Oracle. I've been working with it this year with my decans, and I've been really enjoying it. And so the Cantagy card is going to show us how this energy is lived, embodied, and experienced in the day-to-day. Aquarius is often viewed as visionary, detached, future-focused. But when we slow it down and look at it decan by decan, we begin to see a much more human story unfold. So I hope you're going to enjoy this. Let's jump right in. And we are going to start with Decan One, which is Venus in Aquarius. So here we have our card for Venus. You can see the keyword beloved. And let's see, I have this one too. So let's put that one there. And then the major arcana card for Venus is the Empress. And that makes sense for this beloved Venus having the Empress, because it's that archetype of care, nourishment, and relationship. The interesting thing about the star is the visionary gaze towards the future and the collective. And the Empress is very much in the present moment. Care, nourishment, relationship, what needs to be tended to right now. So when these two energies combine, the result may surprise you because you would think this could be harmonious. But instead, the card representing the first decan is the Five of Swords. And I thought it was interesting to consider the card from the Tarot of Spirit. And you'll see the key word there is fear. So the card depicts conflict, but it's not a simple one. You can see in the foreground, someone appears victorious. They're clutching their swords. And in the background, others are walking away, leaving their swords behind. This is a moral friction with an undercurrent of fear. Someone may be right, but something is lost in the process. Oftentimes, people will describe the Five of Swords as a hard-won battle. The Five of Swords asks us to consider, what does it cost us to move forward in this way? And the clarifier from the Cantagy is perfect. It is the living mountain. And this offers a way through the tension. It tells a story of effort, exhaustion, and problem solving until the traveler realizes they've failed to nourish themselves, even though the mountain itself offers water, rest, and guidance. So this oracle reframes that Five of Swords, reminding us that progress doesn't have to come through struggle alone. We can move forward and make progress without turning the journey into a war. If we pause, listen, and remember our humanity, we can find a way through despite the star's desire to look into the future and think of the collective, and the Empress's desire, very much present focused and taking care of herself, but also her people. So thinking about the first decan of Aquarius, January 20th to 29th, what do you think you may have been pushing forward with, thinking about what's right, without maybe taking a moment to pause and think about what's needed? Sometimes focusing too much on the ideals and the visions of the future can cause us to neglect what's needed in the moment today. I know I have that experience, and maybe you do too. So let's take this one away. And move towards the second decan is Mercury in Aquarius. So here, isn't that a beautiful, colorful card for Mercury? My dog is misbehaving. I might have to pause and deal with that. Here we have Mercury with the keyword of messages. And the major arcana card representing Mercury is the Magician. Can everyone fit? Let's move these up. So here, the star's collective vision meets the magician's agency, the ability to shape, translate, and act on potential. When the vision and the agency align, the alchemy is the Six of Swords. And not surprisingly, when we look at the Tarot of the Spirit, the key word is clarity. So this is a card of transition, of passage, earned movement. It's not escape and it's not victory. It's a quiet decision to move from confusion, maybe fear, and clarity by changing our perspective. So where the first decan asked, what must be sacrificed between the competing point of views? This decan asks, how do we move forward? And the oracle clarifier here, I don't think could be more perfect. And that is guided by Polaris, the North Star. Polaris doesn't tell us where we're going, but it does tell us how to stay oriented while we move. This oracle mirrors the Six of Swords beautifully. Even without a clear distinction, we can navigate unfamiliar territory if we carry a guiding principle, a value, a truth, a dream. That helps us remain aligned as we move forward, because the interesting thing about moving forward with the Six of Swords is we're moving forward into uncertainty. And that can be challenging for us if we don't have a North Star or a guiding principle to help us be willing to move forward, even though we don't know what's ahead. So for the second decan, the reflection that I am considering, and you may find interesting or helpful as well, is what is my North Star? What can I look to help me find purpose in moving forward, not as a goal, but as a compass? So that takes us to Decan 3, the moon in Aquarius, and that is February 9th to February 18th. Here we go. Here's the moon. Not very interesting, I see. The key word here is perception. Marlena Teresa influenced me to get the star codes, Astro Oracle, and I absolutely love it. That's these cards here. The guidebook is good too. And representing the moon, you might think it's the moon card. I did, but it's actually the High Priestess, which makes sense given the key word of perception. So in this third decan, we have Aquarius turn inward because of that High Priestess influence. So the star remains aspirational and future-facing, but the High Priestess brings quiet, intuition, inner knowing, stillness. Their alchemy is the Seven of Swords. This card is often very simply reduced to deception. And I can see why it is interpreted that way. But I think there's a deeper level to the story than we may see on the surface. And that is selective visibility. And the Tarot of the Spirit card, I thought, is quite telling in this. And the key word is many tongues. And in the guidebook, they talk about how all of these snakes are speaking a different language. So regardless of whether or not their intent is similar, they cannot align because they don't speak the same language. And I think that that's a good perspective in the way I like to view the Seven of Swords, particularly in this decan. So we have this quiet wisdom. We have timing become very important. And not everything is meant to be shared, at least not yet. Sometimes silence and stillness is going to be the best way forward. And the Oracle Clarifier, once again, you guessed it, I'm going to say it's perfect because it is a swan in a crowd of crows. The swan here is very quietly visible, different and alone, even when surrounded by all of those crows. And like the High Priestess, the swan offers no explanation. It simply is. And in doing so, it reminds us that belonging doesn't always require full disclosure. So for this third decan, here's a reflection that I'm sitting with. And you might find it helpful too. When is silence, quiet, and stillness the best way forward? How might it be misconstrued as avoidance, but in truth, be what we really need in that present moment? Sometimes we mistake restraint for fear and silence for dishonesty, but I think the Seven of Swords in this context asks us to consider discernment. Sevens are about discernment, after all. Is the information ready to be shared? Is this the right audience? Is this the right time? Is speaking now an act of clarity, or is it actually an act of self-betrayal? Isn't that an interesting spin on the Seven of Swords? In this decan, wisdom might look like waiting, observing, letting understanding ripen before offering it outwards. Taken together, these decans really do tell a story. First, we have Aquarius in Venus with the star and the Empress. That creates a friction between ideals and care. And that is our moral victory, the Five of Swords, and a reminder from the living mountain of the importance of self-care while pursuing that future vision. Then we have Mercury and the star and the magician that guides us toward movement and clarity with the Six of Swords and the all-important North Star. Finally, we have the moon, which brings us the star and the high priestess, and an invitation for quiet reconfiguration of self within the collective and how to carry our humanity as we do. With the swan in the crowd of crows. I hope you enjoyed this exploration of the Aquarius decans. Please take what resonates and leave the rest, and always trust your inner compass. Please like this video if you do. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. And until next time, may the cards bring us truth bombs when we need it and gentleness when we don't. See you next time.